you're not utilizing the sense making that is occurring. Like, ow, this hurts. Okay, what wouldn't? Like, how could you turn this hurt into healing? How can you look at this current circumstance and take maximum personal accountability for using it to inform flow and alignment? What conversations do you need to have? What things are being left unsaid? Because that's usually where it's at. It's like, this sucks. It's like, well, advocate for yourself. Make the change. You know that you don't even have to know, you don't have to know where you're going, what you want to do with your life, but you can know, all right, well, that wasn't it. That's the point of that. That's the point of pain, is to get your attention. And then how you respond to that is up to you.
Hello, welcome to another episode here on the Human Experience Podcast. My name is Blake Chalfant, and I'm the host of the show. And I just got to say, it's so good to have you here. It's so good to know that you are tuning in to listen to this, and it really means the world to me. And today, we were joined by none other than Cameron Rosin. Cameron is a thought leader, a creator, and a plant medicine educator known for making complex ideas accessible. As the host of This Might Be Helpful podcast and through his massive community on Instagram, he explores neuroscience, ancient philosophy, yoga, and spiritual practices. A meditation and yoga teacher, Cam also educates on medicinal cannabis and offers holistic coaching. His work blends creativity and insight, aiming to empower, inspire, and ultimately return to remembrance. There is so much I could say. For the sake of time and to get into the episode, I'm going to keep it short. But this episode was exactly that, a return to remembrance. We dropped the script, opened up, and really let what wanted to be spoken come into the space. And for me, it was one of the most deeply nourishing conversations I've had. It felt like a return to what it means to truly be human, to be a human fully activated with all of our senses online, coming back to the birthright of being a human being and operating through the world in ways that actually deeply uplift, deeply nourish not only the spirit of humanity, but the spirit of the entire world, the health of the entire world, of the earth. And so we went far out, we went deep, and I think we kept it grounded and we kept it integrated. And so for all of you listening, my invitation is listen not only with your ears, listen not only for the words, but listen for the feeling behind the words, and listen inside of yourself for where those words, where those feelings, where are they landing? Where are they touching? Feel through your heart, because so much more than words came through this conversation. Before we get into the episode, if you're new to the channel or you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe, leave us a like, leave us a comment, and rate the show. It really does help the channel grow. It supports me, and it really uplifts the entire channel and what we are doing here. Once again, thank you for being here. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did with Cameron Rosin. Cameron, welcome to the Human Experience. You have arrived. So good to have you here.
Brother, so good to be here. Thank you for the invitation and for the meditation as well, to open up this space. That's the first time I've ever arrived on a podcast and been dropped into the zone like that. So thank you for that gift.
Oh, of course, man. So tell the audience, where are you tuning in from today?
I am in far north Queensland, Australia, Cairns, the Great Barrier Reef, the Daintree Rainforest, one of the last wild frontiers of this country that is still habitable.
Amazing. So it is morning for you, and it is currently afternoon, evening for me. So tell all of the North Americans on this side of the world what are we expecting in July 20th?
Good things.
What's coming for us?
Warmth.
Good things?
Sunshine. Good things, dude. Good things are coming. Good things are coming.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I don't know about the 21st,
wait.
but the 20th, you're in for a good one.
Well, you'll have to let us know. You'll just keep feeding us the information, yeah?
I always had my mom had a plaque in her shop when we lived in Montana. and it said, "Don't worry, it's all okay because it's already tomorrow in Australia." Yeah, don't worry about today. It's
Uh,
already tomorrow in Australia.
I love that. Yeah. So you grew up in Montana and now you live in Australia.
Mm.
I'm curious, how are you viewing everything that's happened in the US recently? I definitely don't want to stick here for too long, but I am very curious, like, how are you seeing it?
Mm. Um, to be frank, I'm at a point of unknown, like very unsure and uncertain and uh, confused. I would say, yeah. I historically I thought that I had an idea around what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really feel like every idea is as valid as every idea right now, which is a strange place to be in, where everything can be equally absurd and have the same potentiality for truth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a confusing time for sure. I think a lot of people don't really trust a lot of news outlets
Mm.
anymore. And the age of mass information, it's like, how are we collectively sense making? And
Hmm.
yeah, it's confusing. I don't think there is an answer. And I'm curious how you're making sense of the time that we're in, like as a species on Earth right now. I think a lot of people are seeing it through different lenses. Um, and so I'm curious how you make sense of like this moment on planet Earth.
Mm. Physically, truthfully, like it is the sense is made, the sense is being made by the feeling body, and we can interpret that as much as we want with the thinking mind, but ultimately we'll be applying our own interpretive symbols to a stream of phenomena that are arising into awareness in each moment. And so sense is already being made by the body. Um, Sense making and making sense, that is a collaborative effort, not just between people and community and collective, but between you and yourself. Like, what is the sense that is occurring now? Can we radically simplify reality by actually dropping the symbology and feeling our way through experience for a little while? Because there's so much sense and intelligence in this moment if we are unobstructed enough to listen and feel and see and hear, touch, taste,
Mm,
smell.
yeah. What is the sense that your body is making?
Hmm. In this moment, in this moment, there's excitement. And again, we're applying like symbols and symbology that act as intermediaries for sensation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I can wrap this up for you. And then
Mm-hmm.
if I've come close to it and we have an agreed idea around what that symbol is, then that's how we get to share the sensation, right? And so the
Mm-hmm.
sense right now, hmm, there is excitement in the chest, right? There's the familiar feelings of excitatory chemicals and softening the belly right now, just as I speak about this, balancing out that excitatory rush with a softness that allows energy to flow. So there's groundedness. I'm definitely feeling grounded today. And anticipatory. There's a lot going on in life. And
Yeah.
anything that is beyond this field of view, literally within my eyesight right now, if that kind of comes back into the thought processes, it's interesting to see how that excitatory sensation and that sense of anticipation can have a little tinge of anxiety and threat to it.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot of sensation occurring.
I totally understand what you're saying. And it's one of these pieces. Like, I feel like you're someone who's really tapped into the body as an intelligent technology and as the way of knowing. And I think ultimately, like, that's what we're being asked to do right now as a collective, is kind of return to this lost technology of the body's intelligence. Um, and I can maybe hear a lot of people right now who are saying, who it doesn't quite make sense to. It almost feels similar to me when someone explains like an animistic worldview, and we've been so taken away from that that you can feel that there's truth there, but it hasn't fully landed yet.
Mm.
Um, and so I'm curious, why aren't people living from that place?
Mm.
Like, there seems like there's been a deep break in trust.
Mm. Why aren't they living in that place is a massive question, right? Because they are, right. Like they're inescapably present, right? That's the thing about the present moment, is that we want to become present and land in the present moment and become more attuned to the present moment. And at the same time, we are also inescapably present. Like there's nowhere else we can be. There's nowhere else we can go. It's just where your attention is in the present moment, and whether that attention is grounded or whether that is being, kind of snipped and you're floating and you feel that kind of disembodied sensation of being ahead with thoughts that just so happens to be attached to a body with needs and aches and pains and annoyances and things to take care of. And so this body just becomes the body becomes a really like the most base of vessels, as opposed to this brilliant, sensitive matrix that is also living in relativity to a sensitive vibrational matrix. The idea that there is just this body as well, and that it ends where the barrier of my skin is, and that there's nothing else beyond that. And it's like there are layers to this body, there are layers to the energy body. And why don't people feel that connection? Right now, people are trying to figure things out just through the mind. They're trying to make sense. Like, the world doesn't make sense. It's like, you're just using the wrong instrument. Like, that's not, logic is one form of sense making, right? Ration and reason, forms of sense making, discernment, deliberation, clarity. These are all different forms of sense making, but sense is not forced, it's felt.
Hmm.
Right? And there's a rigidity to things and a desire, I feel, to have things make sense, right? But you can desire things making sense and you can expect them to. But the more you expect them to make sense and the more you expect yourself to know what is going on, the more dissonance you experience, because there's nothing in the rule book that says it should make sense. We're in the habit of breaking down complex systems into smaller and smaller components in an attempt to understand them. But the fragmentation method of knowledge acquisition has resulted in these distinct fields and separated nodes, that there's a benefit to separating things so that you can kind of see a more granular layout, but ultimately it is a sum of everything working together, nothing in isolation. And it's the synergy of all these things that produces experience as we know it, rather than one thing in isolation. And so sense making is also softening. It's like, what is this intelligent body saying? How is it responding? How am I responding to this environment? And can I soften some of the segregation so that the lines are blurred and you can kind of see a more global image, have a more global experience? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's so good, man. It feels like as you were speaking, what came to me is that is like sense making, creating stories around our experience that we are having. All of it are ways to really soothe the somatic experience that we're having in our body. They are ways to soothe any sort of anxiety or feeling of fear of the unknown, whatever it is. And so, why not? I mean, I know why not, but why not go a shorter route and go straight to the body and learn to work with the sensations that are coming up, the anxiety that's coming up, and find that deeper place that actually doesn't need a story, that doesn't need a story around why you're feeling. Like, we don't need to know what trauma happened when you were in third grade, because we can actually just fully be with the experience that you're having right now in your body. And I've never quite thought about that. But something that you mentioned, the word sensitivity. And I've heard you say that just because of the time that we're in, with the amount of collective loneliness, collective grief, all the heaviness that we're feeling as a collective right now, there's never been a more important time to be fully feeling. Can you explain that?
Society at large, and the systems that facilitate the way we live right now survive by numbing people, right? Like, to work for 12 hours straight on a factory floor, you have to be numb. To drop bombs from the atmosphere on another country, you have to be numb. To spend trillions and trillions of dollars on weaponry and advanced military technology while people go hungry, you have to be numb. And so the antidote to numbness is feeling. The antidote to numbness is sensitivity. And the methods that we use for managing pain, whether it's emotional or physical, are numbing agents. And there is a time and a place for a numbing agent, for a local anesthetic, for an acute relief of pain that is debilitating, but that's an acute treatment, and we ultimately need to come back to feeling our way through experience. And that sensitivity, that is how we remember heritage and these cycles of nature that we are absolutely inexplicably connected with and to. Like, we are not separate from nature, but this idea that we are is something born out of numbness. The idea that it's man and nature, that the plants and the trees, they are there to facilitate my own existence. Like, they're giving me the oxygen so that I can be. No, this is an exchange. I look at the tree and I'm breathing with this tree. Like, we are in this mutual exchange. And when I feel that and pay attention to feeling that more often, that sensitive relationship is restored, right? And there's something that we have a genetic memory of these cycles and relationships. And so to be sensitive is to restore your relationship with self, with the spiritual self, physical self, with land, with sky, with being. And that sensitivity in a world that has been numbed to survive can be painful, but it's also painful to be numb and reach a point where you desperately want to feel but don't know where to start.
Yeah. What I'm really hearing you saying is that we are a part of this ecosystem of life where there is a rhythm that is kind of unifying everything, the seasons changing, the migration patterns of birds, and everything, all the other organisms, all the other species are naturally in harmony with that rhythm. Humans, because of our consciousness, because of our brain chemistry, we have the capacity to go against that rhythm, to go against that grain. And the only way that we can return back to that is by being sensitive to our current experience, by all the different aspects that we are interrelated with. And it's such a beautiful feeling I get when I feel into that. It's like, it's right there. It's right there for us. We just have to be a bit more open and let the guard down a little bit, and it's all right there.
It's so close. It's so immediately there that, but that can sound really far away for people as well, right? Like these are things that with practice make sense. They're very clear. They exist in the body so deeply, but also so close to the surface that they're very easy to access. But I remember there have been phases of my life where that wasn't the case at all. Right? Where like 2020, COVID. I was in Australia, lockdowns in Victoria, some of the most intense lockdowns in the world, and I could see how quickly people were turning to numbness because that was easier than feeling the pain of separation, right? Like it was easier than feeling the pain of that oppression and seeing rights be stripped away. So it was easier to just kind of numb out in some way, right? And everything can be used as a tool for numbness or a tool for feeling. Like we have surrounded by different, modalities for changing your experience and your state of consciousness. And even those that are helpful and healing and sensitive themselves can also be used as a blunt force instrument for numbness, depending on how you use it. And again, there are times for numbness. Like there's a reason that we can numb, and it's a survival mechanism.
Right.
So there's times to be numb, and there are plenty of spaces and people and places in the world right now where numbness may be the most effective way to protect yourself. But there are also lots of people that don't live in those places that are taking on board numbness to deal with just the exposure to information about places in the world right now. Like if you have any capacity to feel a little bit more deeply and to embrace the sensations of being alive, all parts of it. And if that's difficult to embrace where you are and what's going on and how you feel, could we at least just accept that right now it's hard to accept, right? Like surrender to the fact that it was hard to surrender today. Just find a way to neutralize the second arrow and not judge yourself for feeling how you're feeling. Because judgment is one of the first reactions we have that begin this cascade of numbness.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that in. And it's beautiful to feel into how that reality is right here. And like you're saying, very few people are tuning into that reality regularly. And when we really unpack the world that we were born into, when we were born into these bodies, this earth that we inherited, it's like, it's a fucking lot. Like it is heavy. It is a lot to take on. And, I've really been loving this nuance around healthy disassociation. Like I need to go sit on the couch and watch Netflix all day sometimes. And lately it's been more than other times. And, the mantra for me with that, because I am like a very driven person, always wanting to do the right thing, is like, it's okay. Hey, it's okay. What would it feel like if I gave myself permission to do this right now? And I think like it's such good medicine on the planet. It's like, all right, let's acknowledge where we're at. Let's acknowledge these like bigger systems and structures that are broken, that we've been born into. Like we need to shine the light clearly, and it's okay exactly where you're at. And I think from that place of permission where there's not shame and it's like there's space, that's when we can start moving forward. Something that you said, it's like there's so much grief for me around this topic because I know that that reality is right there. I know that that rhythm of life is reverberating through me, trying to express more through me. And yet I'm not choosing it. And yet I'm choosing to disassociate. But that knowing of what really is here, that knowing of my roots, it's like there's so much grief there. And, I'm someone who has the capacity to be aware of that grief. But I feel like as a collective, there's so much grief around that right now, around maybe knowing even just a little bit what our heart says, what our heart wants, what our truth is, but not actually doing anything about it, not speaking up, not actualizing these visions. And there's grief there.
Yeah, there's grief. Right, there's grief with like, the first pockets of landscape that we really inhabited as people, the first evidence of humans sticking to the landscape were areas of the land that had resonance, right? Like caves and valleys that would reverberate your voice back at you, that would echo a precise and immediate reflection of you back at you. So you would sing and the land would sing back, right? So meaning that land had the perfect resonant capacity to reflect the life within it. So there was a tangible and felt sense of togetherness. Like, wow, this land can accommodate the vibrations of my expression so perfectly that it reflects it right back at me. And so that this experience of resonance, like that's, I think what we're looking for is resonance. This, and we say that in modern discourse, oh, I really resonate with that. It's like, yeah, what do you mean when you say that? Like you say you resonate. That's more than I agree conceptually with what you're saying. That's more than, we are on the same page with this idea or belief. It's what you are saying. I am like that resonant cave or valley. What you are saying exists within me and it is occurring within me. You speak to something that is alive here. And we have this shared reverberatory experience where, the heart itself has big acoustic chambers, right? Like the chest has open space that allows air to resonate and reverberate. The bones are resonant conductors of sound. Like every part of us has the capacity to resonate and hold space for the vibrations we encounter. Every single cell in our body has resonant capacity. Like this, it is the seemingly empty space that holds a container for these resonant experiences. And when you notice that, like, you start to resonate with what somebody is saying in conversation, and your body starts to move. Like when you nod our heads and you start to flow with that. And so then you're both, you know, experiencing from this unified place. And we have the symbology in between, and that's the intermediary, but ultimately we're sitting in that same space. And the more we can have community where that experience is not just shared between two people, but then 10, 15, 100, and there's this resonant effect where we get to tune into the undercurrent of human experience, of the experience of life, and all of the individualism and segregation and subjectivity kind of fades, and you are in the pocket with your people. Like that's the experience of a festival, of a concert, like when you're all in the pocket. Everything else kind of fades away, and you are this, to zoom out, you would just see this one moving organism. And so if we can zoom out more and, understand that the subjectivity of this experience is so that I can uniquely contribute to the collective, and that the collective is beautiful because of the unique contributions that make it up, right? And then we can bring this experience of resonance and truth telling and truth seeking into more, collective discourse, because that is how we know we're not alone, right? Like, we often resonate when somebody is vulnerable. Like, oh, this is actually how I'm feeling and what I'm going through. And then that connects to the point in me that felt that too. And so we're not on an island of our own suffering, but we get to come together and go, oh, we are so much more connected than we could think. We have to feel it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It feels like the deepest felt sense of resonance ultimately comes from when we or others have dropped into the rawest expression of where we're at. Like the shield has been taken away. It is the raw expression of me in this moment. And that is what opens the door to deep resonance. And so I think about, for humanity right now, like what is that raw expression of that is needing to be witnessed in order for a resonancy to be birthed. And what I've been feeling a lot is this kind of archetype of the lost wandering traveler. And it's like that feeling of being homeless and have lost our tribe. And it's like we have been traveling through this long winter's night. And it's like that felt sense is what I'm resonating with right now.
Yeah, spiritually orphaned, right? Like, we are it's a disembodied collection of generations, because we are the first to really be raised outside of, established cultural frameworks and, fabrics of meaning making, right? Like, we are meaning making machines, and our cultural institutions and spiritual practices, religions, those were the foundation of that meaning making. But when we are being, raised outside of those conventional institutions, we still have spiritual capacity, but we don't have these more, ingrained ways of understanding that, making meaning from that. And that leads to a generation of wanderers, right? Like, we are wandering in search of. And the exposure to information and how much information there is, we're looking for meaning in the information instead of, looking to meaning and allowing that to inform us. And we forget this all the time. Like, I forget it. I forget it probably every day. And then I remember because of something simple, of like pausing when I find myself rushing for no real reason, and just standing and watching the world go around you for a moment, right? Like, you remember, oh, the sacred is in the simple. Like, it's in the way that the sun is, just pouring over those leaves, or it's the way that the dog tilts his head when he's looking at the little baby who is learning to point at things. And there's just these beautiful moments of depth if you are willing to see, right? Like, this is another thing, is that we have to be participatory in that. You can't wait for the sacred to just, beat you over the head. It's like, I'm here. Here's the meaning you've been looking for. It's like, you got to open up to it, right? Like, what is one of the conditions of resonance is that the space has to be open enough to accommodate the sound. And if you are closed, nothing's going to resonate. You're too busy defending yourself to allow these things to exist within you.
Yeah, this is a perfect transition. into alignment, right? I think being the wandering lost traveler trying to navigate this time, it's like we're all being invited into the process of alignment
Mm.
because that is the
Mm.
only, you know, that's the way that I think we're going to navigate forward. It's not going to be from watching the news, it's going to be from
Mm.
listening closely. And I'll let you add what you want, what you would like to add, but it feels like when you talk about this field of resonance, right, getting together with people, but then really what we're resonating with is this greater field of life force energy, that pulse of life. Like that, to me, that's what we're aligning with. But something you just mentioned is that there's no space for resonancy if there isn't space, if there isn't openness. And so tell me about the importance of pausing and asking what we are doing and why we are doing what we are doing.
Because it's very easy to become distracted. And, whether that's for hours, days, weeks, or years at a time, we can become distracted. And, intention is that pause where we gather ourselves and then direct ourselves. Right? We have such vast sensitivities and ways of being and ways of operating. We have such diversity, like we contain multitudes. And when you are intentional, those multitudes are brought together into alignment, right? So all of you is collaborative. All of you as this beautiful, rich, diverse organism. You are working together with yourself. That is yoga, yoking, union, coming together. When we don't have intention, those multitudes are kind of like fractaled out in different directions, and we feel that very disembodied, ungrounded, uncentered sense that something isn't right. Like something isn't right. And if we can come back to intention, that is how we really help to harmonize subconscious activity to be in alignment with that intended conscious state. And so we coming into alignment, that is an intentional process. And whether that's, an overarching intention for the year or the day or your life, that's what the intention is almost less important than having that intention. Just having that clarification, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And alignment as well. Like alignment is it can sometimes feel hard. It's almost harder to know when you are in alignment, because when you are in alignment, there is an absence of something else. There is an absence of that sense of wrongness, right? And it can be hard to notice what isn't here, which means that we often don't notice those moments, whether it's a momentary experience of alignment or, again, like these things happen on different time scales. But I sure know when I'm out of alignment, because the pain of misalignment is much more salient than sometimes the flow of alignment.
Totally. Yeah, I feel that big time.
And yeah, I think we all have our different experiences of what alignment is and what misalignment is. And but what are the areas of your life that feel most uncomfortable or most full of friction right now? Because those are the areas where you're there, that pain and that friction is pointing you towards flow if you are willing to feel what is going on. If you're too busy numbing the pain and then filling every spare moment with some kind of consumption of media to prevent the chance of a single organic thought emerging, you're not you're not utilizing the sense making that is occurring. Like, ow, this hurts. Okay, what wouldn't? Like, how could you turn this hurt into healing? How can you look at this current circumstance and take maximum personal accountability for using it to inform flow and alignment? What conversations do you need to have? What things are being left unsaid? Because that's usually where it's at. It's like, this sucks. It's like, well, advocate for yourself. Make the change. You know that you don't even have to know, you don't have to know where you're going, what you want to do with your life, but you can know, all right, well, that wasn't it. That's the point of that. That's the point of pain, is to get your attention. And then how you respond to that is up to you. And sometimes that takes us reaching the pivotal mental state, right? Like, if change was that easy, then it'd be easy. But sometimes we are pushed into the pivotal mental state, that point where transformation is inevitable. And lots of people wait for that, right? Like, all right, I'll quit smoking. And then 20 years later, not quit yet, but then receives a diagnosis like, oh yeah, this shit's terminal. So I'll quit smoking now. It's like, you reach the pivotal mental state.
Yeah.
You were pushed to that state, and now you're at the brink of that change. Now you get to decide which way to lean. I was like, all right, I quit drinking after I crashed my car. I was like, can we act a little earlier? Can we use this knowledge that often we wait for that pivotal state? And can we induce that pivot a little bit earlier? And that means becoming more attuned to pain as well as pleasure,
Yeah. Someone told me a quote recently. I don't remember who it's by, but it goes something like, life speaks in feathers, bricks, and freight trains. But and most people wait for the freight train. So the invitation is like, let's listen to the feathers and the bricks. And I totally have so much compassion. I had to wait for my freight train to come find me. I think for a lot of us, we don't have any exposure to any other ways of being in the world. So it's like, okay, life's kind of mediocre. All my relationships are pretty mediocre. Isn't life supposed to be like this, right? I've never experienced anything else. This is all I really know. So I have a lot of compassion for that. And as I know that you do as well. I want to read a quote from you that is absolutely perfect for this. Talking about alignment, it says, "The integrity of not knowing and the dissonance of expecting that you should. Can we let go of that? Expecting that you should know where it is you're going, that you should know how it will work, even the expectation that you should know what you're saying. Stop controlling it so much." And it lands so deeply. And I think for me, it goes back to what you were saying around just the intention of living an aligned life. Like, it's not something that happens passively. It's an active engagement within it. And the invitation that I feel you giving with that quote is that you don't need to know the next step past the intention. All we need is that intention.
And that's true. And it's like, that's actually the most realistic way to live as well, right? Like, it's realistic to not know. It's unrealistic to claim certainty. And it's also, a contract of suffering that you are, signing. It's like, this is how I expect life to go. So, all right, well, here you go. Sign here and sign here. We'll deliver you your suffering as soon as that expectation fails to meet your experience. And so to have that intention, because the intention, again, that way of harmonizing activity between the subconscious and your conscious, desires, is that intention brings everything together and gives you a lens. And that lens has a certain resolution to it. You are seeing through the resolution of alignment, which will help show you the contrast and the friction and the misalignment that much more clearly. And so with that intention, you embrace a certain level of sensitivity that empowers you to make decisions that are in accordance with what you feel to be aligned and accordance with how you want to live your life. Without that intention, the world chooses for you, right? The world will choose unless you decide to be the one that chooses. And so that you have to embody that. There's courage to that as well. Like it requires that a level of being in yourself. And you can see who's in themselves. You can
Yeah.
see it's so clearly, so clear, the people that are where they are. It automatically draws you to where
Yeah.
you are. There's just that share again, a shared resonant experience, the coherence, heart brain coherence, and me being able to tune into the coherence of your heart. And I think that's what the world really needs right now is people who have heart brain coherence and a practiced presence that eventually does become effortless, right? Like you practice being present, and then after a while it's like, oh, I'm here. Like it's so close. You just have to remember where you are.
So easy. And it's our human birthright. Like that's something that I've been talking about a lot recently is that this way of being, it's not reserved for only certain people in the world. Like it's not like we're in some play of life and there's extras and then there's the main characters. Like we are all on that stage together. We all have access to these states of being. Like I think one of the easiest kind of ways of not ever actually taking a step is saying, "Oh, well, that's just reserved for those kinds of people." Um, and it's not. It is our birthright.
It's like
Yeah.
saying it's too hard is too easy, right? Like, oh, I can't meditate. I've got ADHD. It's like, so do I. If we want to look at it from that lens, I was diagnosed with ADHD in 2019 or something. And I took that as a sign of like, oh, fuck, well, nobody else is going to work on this brain for me, so I got to have to do it myself. Like, I refuse to fight for a limitation like that. And there's so many people out there that, you're right, they think that these things are reserved for other people, right? But if you've ever felt inspired, motivated, excited, envious, jealous, these are all, to me, can be used as affirmations and confirmations that what you're seeing is for you too. Because you felt that. It exists within you. And so instead of focusing on that, focus on the feeling. Like the
Yeah.
gaze, turn it towards the feeling. Focus on the feeling of it all. And I really feel that if we can focus on the feeling and on fostering the feelings, that we can make sense from different vantage points. Like if you want to make sense from this point of defense, then all the sense you'll ever make will be made using patterns of the past. You will never be able to embrace present moment experience as long as you are trying to make sense of it using your associations and pattern recognition of the past. Ultimately, making sense is in dropping everything, even the words to describe what it is you are seeing. If you really want to make sense, let go of the words, right? Because we think that just because we have the words to describe what we're seeing, that we understand what it is that we are describing. The open eye meditation of just like picking a fixed point. I recommend doing this in nature, looking at a tree, and then letting go of the word tree. And suddenly this thing takes on a much more strange and bizarre manifestation. Like, oh, I've been engaging with that thing as a tree But I've just been engaging with this agreed idea of tree instead of this living, manifestation of energy, like this ineffable, indescribable, unfathomable thing. We could say, all right, well, it's tall relative to that thing that's short. Like we have everything makes sense in the mind as long as everything has its story and its name. But as soon as that goes away, the mind goes, oh, well, what do we do with this? It's like, just witness. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. What are we making sense from, right? We're making sense from the mind, like you're saying, which is a recollection of everything that's happened in the past and all of our memories and everything that we've been told. So really, it's not actually true. Yeah. Powerful. That's really powerful. As we're wrapping it up, one final piece, actually a couple kind of more rapid fire things. But a moment ago you were touching on, right, victimhood. You were born with ADHD. There's a lot of people who say I can't meditate because I have ADHD, or you are diagnosed with ADHD. I remember you making a post sometime about people who were telling you that you came from a privileged family or something like that, and that's why you're in the position that you're in. And I've contemplated that for a long time and kind of come to this place that any kind of stories that we're telling ourselves that are not empowering us more and leading to more freedom within our lives that are just not useful. So I am curious to hear you kind of, address all of the people who maybe hear this conversation and are saying that's not me, that's reserved to only certain people, and who aren't letting it actually land.
It is very hard to receive anything when you are too full of your own assumptions. And if believing that there could be more to life is too hard right now, you get the defense is too strong, then can you momentarily suspend the disbelief? Can we enter a place of neutrality where things may or may not be possible, where everything is a maybe still, right? Because the world has nothing to prove to the individual. It is up to the individual to open up to the world. And there is growth or death. You can either grow and be more, embrace more, or you can embrace the slow death of defending ideas. Like the greatest barrier to gathering knowledge is defending the knowledge you have, defending the experience you have. So if you want to defend it, you can keep it, right? Like I stopped, giving advice. I stopped trying to convince anybody of anything because I speak, and I will speak to whoever has the degree of receptivity that they're willing to listen, right? Like you can meet people where they are. And for any person that wants to meet themselves on a deeper level, they can continue to lean in, right? But it's that we have to make that decision ourselves of like, all right, you know what, I would like to know what I'm capable of. Maybe what I've been told isn't quite so true or so sticky. Maybe there's more to this. Maybe there's more to me. Maybe I've been surrounded by dickheads my entire life, and I need to change my circle and be in a different zone of influence. And maybe I need to go far away from where I am in order to be present, and then take that presence back with me wherever I go. Like it comes for us. Like you can defend and maintain that victim stance, but it will still come for you. The recognition that oh shit, this was my responsibility. Okay, and hopefully that person still has the time and space and capacity to live meaningfully, because that's what we're looking for.
Okay. I want your reading list. So, a few books.
Well, I've been what have I been reading lately? Eternal Echoes by John O'Donoghue. I think he's a Celtic author. So Echoes of Belonging has been beautiful. Um, my other reading list has been I've been reading fantasy novels. That's been my escapism and little tool for numbness or expansion, depending on how you're looking at it. Um, I recently read one of Dale Carnegie's training manuals on healthy assertion because I needed to advocate for myself recently. And it's like, well, what is this idea of being assertive? What does that mean? So simple things like learning how to be better. I am in a phase right now of a low information diet. So my reading list is
Mm-hmm.
small and deliberately so. Recognizing that there are patterns of this creative process. There are seasons and cycles and rhythms and waves, and one of those is the gathering phase, and then there's incubation and integration before application. And personally, I've realized, particularly recently, how permeable I am. And so when I'm in a phase of incubating and putting together an idea, I pretty much need to tune out all information because I run the risk otherwise of coming across a bit of information that disrupts my idea of how I want to do this thing, or even a helpful bit of information that then I want to integrate and add to this project. It's like no, I have to protect the integrity of this idea, and that means not speaking to certain people, not reading information books, not listening to podcasts, not going on social media. Pretty much, like, just got to go back to paper. If your brain feels full, you're overwhelmed, overstimulated, or lacking direction, you're probably just lacking expression. And it's hard to create and consume at the same time. I think they are different, very different positions in consciousness.
Yeah. That lands deeply for me. I'm not to that point yet. I'm still a bit lost in the information, but I'm working on it. So, if anyone's wanting to tune in more with your stuff, where would you send them?
You can check out my podcast called This Might Be Helpful. There's also a community that we meet up every week to come together and experience togetherness and meditate, co-create all of the things that that we are speaking about today. Otherwise, you can find me on Instagram at Cameron Rosin, and I'm slowly edging my way into the YouTube landscape, bit by bit. Just finding different.
Amazing, man. We'll put all that in the show notes as well. And any final words?
Brother, thank you for inviting me to this space. Thank you for opening up with that meditation and just creating such a beautiful landscape for us to explore. Really, really excellent facilitating and interviewing it. So thank you. It's a joy.
Thank you, man. It truly is a joy to have you here. I am so inspired by you, the message, the echoes coming through your being, and just like keep doing your thing. I really believe in you and the medicine you're bringing into the world, and we'll have to run it back because I had such a good time. And yeah,
Dude,
yeah. Thank you
you
so
got
much
that
for being
medicine
here,
too.
brother.
I so appreciate it. And there's a mutual recognition to that medicine. We're on that path.
Thanks, man.